It's actually a very big day in Insight because Insight has never done, to my knowledge, anything with regards to Android training. So this is a very introductory session, but it's going to be very, very full because I'm trying to break down many of the questions that you guys have asked with regards to operating systems and phones for individuals who are blind or visually impaired. So today we're going to talk about Androids and their accessibility. And I have several Android devices. So in one screen, you can see I want to be able to show presentations of different phones. So the one that you see lit up in blue is a track style Android phone. And the one that has more of the reddish screen, or the one that's on the left hand side, is a brand new Samsung Galaxy A51 that Verizon offers for free. Isn't that nice? I also have tablets, so I want you guys all to know this is a Kindle Fire tablet, which is an Android-based tablet. And we also have what we call the Galaxy A Tab, which is a more professional, more working style tablet. It is a smidge bigger than the iPad and has a little bit more weight to it. So just so that you know, those are going to be the devices that we're going to be sharing and talking about a little today. But as always, you know how I love to build houses because we need to have good, firm foundations for everything. So that's basically what I want to do right now is I want to offer that firm foundation. But before we do that, we have some people in the audience that really helped our technology team to make this Android happen. So we had to, quite frankly, I've been an iPhone user ever since they came out, and I never really have stepped into the world of Android until just recently. So we have some people in the audience that offered us donations of some Android devices to help us in learning. So there were people in our audience today who helped us and provided us a couple of Android phones and a couple of Android tablets, again, to help move forward in our learning. So thank you for your donations, much appreciated. I have learned, and I'm sure Mary Abby has learned quite a bit from it. So without further ado, let's talk about what are Androids, and we need to compare them to something because many of us use iOS devices, and that's usually the big question is, and again, we're staying with the structure, people who are blind or have low vision. So what does Android have to offer, and what are the differences between the iOSs? Okay, iOS, which is Apple, and Android. Okay, first of all, Apple calls their operating system iOS, and then they give it a number. So currently, Apple is on iOS 14. Android used to do desserts. For those of you that may remember, Mary Abby and I were talking a little while ago. They used to be Kit Kat, Jelly Bean, quite a few others. So for your information, Android has deserted the desserts. So they're no longer calling their tablets by candy bars or desserts, but now they're just calling them numbers. So right now, Android is on 10. That operating system was updated last year. I haven't heard anything whether it's going to be updated again. For those of you that may want to say, well, who does Android? Android's owned by Google, but it is an open source operating system. So the most important thing to know, okay, with regards to Androids, and again, like I said, we kind of compare them to iPhones because that's one of the biggest questions that many of us have is Android phones tend to be less expensive and a little easier to come by. So those of us who are on budgets, we tend to want to look towards that versus an iPhone. So those are some of the information you'll get today. So not all Android phones are the same in terms of what they can access. We found that out thanks to the wonderful donations that we received. So going back to the screen here, the Android phone that I have on the right-hand side is actually a track phone for those of you that are familiar. So these are telephones that you can purchase for a minimal price. Usually they're under $100, and you buy them with minutes. So you get like 100 minutes, 200 minutes, and you usually purchase it by the year. So it's no contract. You just buy what you need as you need it. It's usually done by a card. Well, what I found very quickly was that these Android devices are not created equal, and that some of the services and things that I needed within this phone were not available along with the settings. We'll find out some more about that. So just to let you know, they're not all created equal. Some of the differences is, let's talk, the iOS, which is the Apple, is a very closed system, if you will, whereas Android is open. So users cannot really create lots of system permissions within their Apple devices, but they have full access to many different things using an Android. So they can do a lot more customizations than iPhone. I'll give you one example. For those of you like me that wish I could change the color and contrast of the keyboard on my iPhone, I wish they would. You can do that very easily on the Android. So that's just one example of how an Android is a little more open-ended than the Apple devices. The Android software is available through many manufacturers. So you can get the Android operating system through Samsung, LG, Motorola. There's a lot of those phones out there. There's one that starts with an H that I can't pronounce it. I think it's Chinese, but I'm terrible at pronouncing that. So it comes on a lot of manufacturers, and because it comes on a lot of manufacturers, they want to put their own software on there, if you will. So for example, for those of you that don't know, Samsung has its own digital assistant. So those of you, Windows has Cortana, iOS has Siri. Well, Samsung has Bixby. For those of you that don't know that, and it's a big up and coming voice assistant. And they also have Google, of course.
Gloria, what was the name you just said? I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear.
No, Bixby.
Bixby, okay, thank you.
You got it, Bixby. And all Samsung devices, including their smart televisions, are being sold now with the voice assistant Bixby. And as a matter of fact, this is a Samsung phone on the left here, and it came with the voice assistant Bixby. But remember, because these are Android devices, you could also put in the Google Assistant. And when we're talking about assistants, this is what we're talking about, how we can give a voice command and then have the phone do something. That's what
Can I just jump in for 2 seconds?
Please.
So that is a perfect example of how you're able to customize Androids a little bit more than iPhones. So you would never be able to say, I don't like Siri. I don't want to use Siri. I want to use Google Assistant and make that my main assistant. You would never be able to do that on an iPhone. So that's just another example of how with Androids, you can kind of customize things to your liking a little bit more, is that you could even switch out the assistant that you're using or things like that. So thanks, Bill. Let me jump in.
Awesome. Oh, no, please do. And anybody that has, questions or comments, please feel free. We're a pretty small group today, and I want people to get as much information as they can. So again, just going back to talking about some of the differences, Android applications. So if you're looking for apps, for instance, for Android, you go to the Google Play Store, whereas with an iOS or an Apple device, you go to the Apple Play Store or the App Store, Apple App Store. The integration with other devices, the Apple OS is much better compared to Android, and that would make sense because Apple kind of controls and keeps things structured, so it's easier to make things accessible and always the same, whereas Android, it's a little more open, so that's why we tend to have some inconsistencies there. We just talked about the voice assistants. We have Siri for the iPhone and the Google Assistant for the Android. Now, I haven't gotten to statistics because I am a statistics junkie, but I haven't read the numbers yet, but people are saying that the Google Assistant is much more powerful than Siri. Now, I don't know how this is measured, and I haven't seen the statistics yet. especially after the update of the iPhone 14 when they said that Siri is supposed to be 20 times faster than any other voice assistant. So we'll see about that. The speed running iOS devices remains constant all the time. So in an iPhone, everything is consistent all the time, whereas the performances are going to be different on an Android device. Not only are they going to be different, but with Android devices, the performance declines over time. So those of you that are trying to make justification for that dollar for the iPhone, this is one of those justifications, whereas the iPhones always stay consistent and the Androids tend to fade out in terms of their performance. Another important thing to know about Androids versus iPhones is that the iPhones, you can always get an update. So like if let's say you're on 13 and next year you decide you want to update to 14, you can wait and then update at 14. With an Android device, you're timed. So you can only do upgrades in a certain amount of time. If you don't do those upgrades, that's it. Your phone stays at whatever version it was, and that's it. And that's all you get. And then again, the phone is going to decline in terms of performance over time. Again, a couple of other justifications for comparing and contrasting. All right. Any questions so far?
Gloria, it's Molly
Yeah.
again. Could you just say a little bit more what you mean about the phone is definitely going to decline over time? Is that just as a result of, there's not as many software updates, or I'm sorry, I'm a little dense.
Because of that, no, that's okay.
Point out the same thing.
Yeah, the Android is an open-ended device, so which means that many developers of varying types can create apps to put on their devices. So it's what they call open source. Because things aren't consistent and always compacted, these Android devices can't stay the same over the time, and so that's what ends up happening to them, is they just tend to decline in terms of their performance.
Okay, so because there's so many different variables of a certain app developer could, change stuff on their end, and this other app developer could change stuff on their end. As a result of there being so many different variables, it's just hard for the phone to keep up, kind of?
Exactly. Yeah, that's
cool.
From what I've read, that's kind of how they throw it out there. They don't want to.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they don't want to
is
bag
interesting.
themselves, but they, I found this information, so I do have it documented. So, because I needed to know, I didn't want to just talk smack. I wanted to make sure I had the facts.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, so I just wanted to kind of lay out the foundation. Now, most of this presentation I'm going to do using, trying to show some of the phones. I'm going to just do as much describing as I possibly can. But I basically want to kind of take you through and show you its accessibility and what it looks like, versus, because you guys have already seen, the iPhones and that kind of stuff. So I first wanted to talk about when you get an Android phone, what comes built in. We already know, most of you, because I think everybody here uses an iPhone. So most people know what's already built into that phone. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, what was built into the Android. So, so just to give you a little bit of history, what I did was I took the plunge and I bought myself an Android phone. And don't misunderstand, I did not give up my iPhone. I can't give up my iPhone. But I joined the Android world and very pleasantly surprised. One of the very first things that I absolutely loved, as I stated earlier, was the fact that I could change the keyboard color. That kind of tickled my fancy. And once I went on with that, I found that there was a lot more of accessibility options within the Android that were just nice little nuances, if you will. My issue is still the same in that things are very consistent in the iPhone and you can always find them in the same place. In the Android, sometimes you got to go digging. And for those individuals that are new to cell phones and to gestures, digging for things is no fun. So So we're gonna try to get started, and let's talk a little bit about some of the things that the phone has. So one of the first things, it does come, most of the Android phones that I've been playing with, I found every single one of them comes with something called a voice assistant, okay? And it's supposed to be its screen reader. So it's what they put inside the cell phone so that you can then be able to move forward and gain other accessibility. So what I found is they installed this voice assistant. It's a screen reader, and it allows you to then be able to get to the Google or the Androids, what they call Accessibility Suite, which includes TalkBack. TalkBack is the Android's or Google's screen reader. And it's the one that we've heard about the most. It's the one that people use the most. It's the one that's the most accessible for Android phones. Like I said, it comes with something called a voice assistant. Oops. I'm just scrolling to the top of the screen because it just goes a little bit, it runs a little differently than the iPhones. So I'm gonna go to, I'm looking for accessibility. And when I go into accessibility, my very first option here is the screen reader. And what I can do is, and the screen reader is called Voice Assistant. It's very difficult. It's, when I say difficult, it's that computer synthesized speech. So the very first thing that they tell you to do is to install the Google Accessibility Suite. And what's interesting is when you go into the settings and to the Android, that option is at the very, very bottom. So for those of you that can see on the very top of the screen, it tells me that I'm in accessibility, and it tells me that I'm using 4 functions. Okay, so I've already set some disability functions, and it's telling me here that I've set 4 of them. Okay, I'm going to skip the screen reader and go right into visibility enhancements. So here's some of the things that we can do. We have high contrast themes, which is very similar to things that we do on the iPhone. We could do high contrast fonts. Here's the keyboard I was telling you guys about. So we have, this was a yellow keyboard with black letters. This is a keyboard with white letters and black, white letters with black background, and then it has white around the keys. The next keyboard layout is mostly white around the keys. The keys themselves are yellow with a black background contrast. And then the last keyboard option that they give you are blue background keys with white letters.
Gloria, are any of
yes.
those, do any of those have like extra big letters, or is it really just the difference is really just the color?
They are a little bit bigger. They're a little more elongated, if that makes sense. They're not fatter, they're more elongated.
Okay, like taller?
Yep, exactly, like taller.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep, yeah, sure. And what's interesting is the modifier keys. So let me give you an example. Like if you're looking at the blue background keys, the modifier keys, and what I mean by that are like the shift and the return. Those keys are of different contrast so that they kind of stand out. So the letters and numbers are blue background, white letters, and then the modifier keys are opposite. They're black with white so that they kind of stand out or stand apart. So it's kind of cool. All right, I'm going to go back.
So Gloria, if I select a keyboard display, do I have to say save? Like, how do I make that the setting?
Once that's what you've chosen, so if you're on high contrast keyboard, just pick the one that you want.
Yep.
It'll show up on the screen. And then in the top left corner, you see the little arrow, and you just go back, and the keyboard just stays at whatever it was that you chose.
Okay, thank you.
There is no like confirm.
Okay.
It's just, this is the one you chose, so when you get out, and that's the one it's going to be.
Thank you.
So, yep. So there's a lot in the what they call visibility enhancements. We can show button shapes. So for some individuals, that's very, very helpful. Molly, it's got that wonderful dark mode to it with color conversions, and you can control them a little bit better than you can in the iPhone. Molly, I just say you because I know that you and I
Interesting.
yeah, that was one of the biggest.
You know what I like.
Yeah, well, we're pretty similar in that way, and I found some really nice. One of the visibility enhancements down here is called color correction, and so in pictures, oftentimes, if we're looking at things with black background, this will correct the color. So you'll see the background converted, but then the picture, you'll see the way you're supposed to see the picture. So
that's really cool.
It is. It is. Yes.
Gloria, my phone says the color correction is experimental and may affect performance. Should I avoid that?
I wouldn't do that yet because maybe you need an upgrade.
Oh, okay.
I just upgraded my phone before I started because before that mine said experimental.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that that might just be an upgrade.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So within this visibility enhancements, I'm still there as we can see right at the top. And so I'm still in there. This is where my magnification, where I would see a magnification window and where I have control of making my screen magnified. So again, like in Apple, you have to use different gestures. To magnify anything is you just tap it 3 times with one finger. And that's the gesture to make it big, to make it magnified. This also allows you to, like there's a new feature on the iPhones where you can have a mouse pointer. You can also do that on the Android as well. And then we can change the size of the font, just same as the iPhone. And you can make it bold. What I do like here is that you can actually change the font style. So you have with Gothic bold, and you can actually download fonts if you wanted. Many of us have some difficulties when we look at the screen, like especially individuals with macular degeneration, we have those little dark spots. And so if we're using a font where the letters are very, very close, oftentimes when we have Mac, that dark spot is covering like 2 letters. So it makes it almost impossible for us to even guess the word. So oftentimes if we can find a font that has a little spacing in it, sometimes that's of great assistance for individuals that have that diagnosis. Something to think about. All right, so I'm going to get out of fonts, and then the last one at the bottom is screen zoom. And if you look, hey, where did my, okay. If you look at my screen, just for your information, it's showing like if I was sending a text message to some people, and it shows me the text message enlarged. And this is where, again, most of us, including myself, have a great difficulty when we're trying to read our text messages. They're not big enough. Sometimes the color contrast. Mary Abby, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it blue background and white letters from iPhone to iPhone, and then it's green background with white letters from Android to iPhone?
I believe you're correct. But
I think it's something like that.
I think I've heard that before, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's how you can tell if it's an iMessage or a text message, is the color.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No.
So in the Android, you have something similar, whereas, but I like their color combination a little bit better. It's more of a buff or a white contrast background with black letters. And then the blue is a background and the letters are bright. It just seems a better contrast on the Androids than it does on the Apples. So that's screen zoom. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think VoiceOver also, like I've heard where it will say iMessage versus a text message. So like it does.
But that's an auditory notification for us, but for visual, for those who are visual, it's a color contrast that they can see.
Yeah. Does the Android give auditory notification?
Yes.
I don't know if Android
Oh.
has, does Android have an inter-Android messaging system, kind of like iMessage? I don't think they do, so I don't know if they
No,
need.
no, I was incorrect. Yes, you're right. They don't.
Because I don't think
Interesting.
they need to have that kind of distinguished. Um, that you know what I mean, where it tells you, okay, this is Android to Android or iPhone to iPhone. I don't think they have like a messaging system like iPhone does.
No, they don't because Android has that type of control built within it, whereas the iPhone doesn't. So it has to distinguish, whereas the Android does make a difference.
Interesting. Thanks.
That's the little I've read. All right. I will say this: if you are a hearing impaired individual or a deaf individual, then you need an Android. And if we just go into the hearing enhancements within an Android, that's where you'll see you can get real-time captioning. So in other words, you can have a phone call or a conversation with an individual just turning on your Android, and your Android could actually be your captioning device so that you would have access to that conversation. That's one of the biggest things that I found that would be something that would definitely deter somebody from an iPhone to an Android. So if you are deaf and hard of hearing, and it's funny because I worked at OSL for quite a while, and I was working in the deaf community, and very, very few of them. I think it was just the sign language interpreters that had iPhones. Everybody else had the Androids, and it was because of this capability. So if you do, they have something called Live Transcribe, and they also have something called Real-Time Text. And this is a way for deaf and hard of hearing people to be able to text back and forth. So having somebody that may be deaf or hard of hearing and visually impaired using an Android, they could get real-time captioning and then couple it with TalkBack. So again, that's how a deaf or hard of hearing person, or somebody who's deaf, hard of hearing, and or blind would be able to access the device.
Gloria, on my phone,
Please.
Trace,
Mm-hmm.
the left-right sound balance is grayed out for me.
Yeah, mine is too.
Yep.
Mine is too, and I think it could be due to a sound setting. One of the sound, I can tell you, so on the Android devices, you remember on the Apple, how we can hit that home button 3 times and we can get accessibility questions. We can either turn voiceover on that way, we can turn magnifier on that way. Well, what Android does is it uses the side buttons. And what I noticed is when I tell it to use like the volume up button and the power button, it doesn't allow me to control the sound here. It makes it grayed out.
Okay.
I don't know if that's really the case or not. I just happened to notice that nuance.
In the adapt sound, a screen comes up that says allow, deny, or deny and don't ask me again.
Yep. I see the same thing.
What does that do?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Okay. That's on your
Thank you. Put it on my to-do list.
No worries. So when you were saying we could see the texts and we could tell the incomings and outgoings better?
Oh, that was under screen zoom, under visibility enhancements. If you go all the way to the bottom.
Oh, okay. I guess
right at the bottom, it said screen zoom. I don't know if you could see it on that screen now.
Under accessible, visibility enhancements.
Yep.
Okay, and then at the bottom.
Yep.
Yes, I see screen zoom. And I only had 3 settings on that. It was low, medium, and high. Yours looked like it had more.
Yeah, it did have a little bit more.
Increments.
It could have, yeah.
Yeah.
And that just has to do with the type of phone. Remember we said at the beginning, that's one of the things about Android phones is that they're not all the same.
Okay.
Any manufacturer, they can add or subtract certain things. And I know that they do play with the sound.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Does anybody want a really a better explanation about the hearing enhancements? So the real-time text lets you use text to communicate during a phone call. It works very much the same like a TTY. You guys familiar with that one?
No.
I know for some professionals out there, this is something that's helpful. All right.
What
It
is
just doesn't. So a TTY is, in order for us to be able to communicate with a deaf individual, you used to pick up the phone and you'd hear this squeaking noise, sounded like a fax machine. And then you would take the phone and you would put it on a small keyboard, and then you could type back and forth to the individual. And that's how they would communicate, because obviously they can't hear on the phone. That was all very old technology. Live Transcribe allows you to listen to live speech and display it as text. So that's a true accessibility option for those people who are deaf or hard of hearing. So they could join in on any conversation, just turn on Live Transcribe, and then they could actually see the communication and what's happening.
Is that under hearing enhancement?
Yes, it is. Yep. And that's something that's brand new. So we'll have to check and see if that's on your phone.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because it's a new update.
Oh, I think I spotted it.
Found it?
Had to scroll down. Listen to live speech and display it as text. I found
There
it.
you go. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm just gonna, so we're still within accessibility. I'm just gonna touch on this very quickly. There's something called an assistant menu, and it has to do with, they call it interaction and dexterity. So it's allow you to put, for individuals that may not have full use of their hands, so that they can't touch the top of the screen. The iPhone calls it reachability, if I'm not mistaken. But what this does is it allows you to reach buttons or put keys or gestures to common interactions in places that are easier for an individual to get to. So let's say somebody holds the phone more towards the bottom, as I'm doing here, and they can't reach the top, or they can't move their hand up here. You can make all the interactions happen in the lower part of the screen on the phone.
Or do you mind if I jump in and explain?
Please.
For some?
Yes,
okay,
please.
so
Thank you.
so for the iPhone users, it is called reachability, and what you do if you have a home button, if you double tap that home button quickly, not even press it down, just like put your finger on it twice quickly, it makes a sound, and it drops the top of the screen down towards you, so you can just reach up with your thumb and hit the let's say the status bar. It kind of drops towards the middle of the screen, so that way you don't have to readjust your grip if the way you're holding it is with your hand towards the bottom. So that's what reachability does, and I'm assuming that's what Gloria is talking about here. Is it kind of drops controls that are at the top of the screen down to towards the middle or the bottom.
Yep, and that's where, yep, you're right, Rock. So this is the area too, where if you had, an individual that had any kind of issues using their hands and you needed to adapt the phone in some way, this is where those adaptations would take place. I'm not sure if those of you, have anybody seen anybody use an iPhone with a switch?
No.
Somebody that doesn't have access, cannot use gestures. You can actually plug a programmable switch in here so that the individual could actually, for any part of their body that they would have function of. I recently did it. Somebody had good function. They had good movement in their elbow. So they had good control of their elbow. I put a switch on their elbow, connected one to the phone, made some adaptations, and now they can use the phone like gestures with a switch, as well as voice assistant. So that's what this section is really for, is for that population. All right. Okay. I want to get into talkback, so I'm kind of going through these a little quickly because they're not a lot of us use them. So a couple of other things is when we get into advanced settings down here on the bottom, or close to the bottom, this is where you can set those hard buttons. So I'm going to lean my phone up. On the left side of my phone are volume and on off switch. Now, underneath this setting, I can tell it if I press these two keys to turn on or off an accessibility option. So for instance, if I hit the volume up and the power, I can turn talk back on, which is the screen reader, okay? This is also the area that I can create voice labels for items. So this is where I can use the camera for things that may not have labels on them, take pictures of them, so that if I don't know what they are, I can scan my camera over them and they'll tell me what they are. That's just a very brief what it does. We have, oh Molly, I can't think of the name of the device that takes it reads the barcodes.
The ID Mate.
Thank you. So voice labeling is very similar to like ID Meet, where you can take pictures of it, tag it, and then when you take a picture of it again, you'll know what it is. And whatever you tag it with is the information that you want it to have.
Now, I know this is just one of many things you've talked about, so I don't want to make you get off track, but I'm just curious, with this feature, what it's recognizing is the actual like visual image of the item. Is that correct?
And it's the what do they call that? NFC tag.
Oh, okay. So it's not, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought it was like recognizing it via the image, and I was like, what the
No.
heck?
I said that wrong. No, it's not recognizing the image, it's recognizing the tag.
That's
My
really, that's
apologies,
still
thank you.
very, very cool though, because that's
Yeah.
not, and that's something that's built into the settings, Gloria?
Yeah, yep, it's
That's
under
really
advanced
cool.
settings.
Because
Yeah.
normally I would think if you wanted to do that on an iPhone, you would need to get an app like Way Around or something like that. Is that
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Cool.
iPhone has NFC tags built into it now, so if you go into the control center, you'll see at the bottom it says NFC tag reader. Don't know how it works.
Is that new on 14?
I think it is because I've never seen it
Okay,
before.
cool.
Is that for
Thanks,
tagging
guys.
photos or?
I think it's more for barcode reading.
I think
Oh,
so,
right.
too.
Okay.
I think. I haven't played with it. So
Okay, that would make sense. Okay, thanks.
All right, and then this happens to be a Samsung phone. So if I wanted to, I could actually put the Bixby voice assistant on here, or I could use Google Assistant. For this phone, I didn't want to get into the Bixby right away, so I just used the Google. So I can call the phone and just say, "Okay, Google," and then ask it a question. See, now it's listening.
I really like when you ask the questions.
She said, "I really like when you ask the questions." So that's using that feature is really, really helpful. You can ask it to apps. It does actually read you more information, I found, that Siri does. Siri likes to say, "I found this for you on the web," which really doesn't help me. I want it to read everything out, and Google tends to do that. All right, let's get it. What everybody really wants to see is, or hear about, I think, is talk back a little bit. So what I did is I went to Google, the Play Store, and I downloaded the Android, they call it the Android Accessibility Suite, and you have to go through some of that and set it up. Also, what I did was, if I'm going to move the phone up a little bit, so I want you to look at the bottom right-hand corner. It's supposed to be a picture of a little guy, of a person. If I touch that, what that does is it brings up my accessibility menu. So the very first thing I have is my assistant, my Google Assistant. I can power off my device, and I can go directly into the settings. And you guys see how big those icons are. So Molly, just to give you some information, it's like down to my second knuckle in my finger. So that's how big the icon is. So there's only 4 icons and it takes up half of the screen.
Oh, wow.
So
That's cool.
Yeah, right. So when you touch that accessibility option, it's like in your face, for a lack of better terms. Which is which is really nice. Roll through the settings as I'm doing with these big buttons. I can control the brightness, and the volume buttons have like a different color to them, and brightness buttons are yellow, which we would think brightness yellow. As I keep scrolling, I can change notifications. So this is a very quick, easy way for us to set up accessibility for somebody so they're not having to try to go through the regular accessibility, okay? In other words, the standard icons. So if we had somebody with, significant vision and we only wanted to teach them a few things, everything stays consistent in the accessibility menu. Okay. All right. I'm going to go back into accessibility and want you guys to hit talk back.
Talk back on. Talk back.
So talk back is on. I put it to a guy's voice. You guys can hear it.
When talkback is on, it provides spoken feedback so that you can use your device without looking at the screen. This can be helpful for people who are blind or have low vision. To navigate using talkback, swipe right or left to move between items. Double tap to activate an item. Drag 2 fingers to scroll. To turn off talkback, tap the switch. You'll see a green outline. Double tap the switch. On the confirmation message, tap OK. Then double tap OK, 2 of 2 in list 2 items.
So you get the idea of the voice. The voice is different than what we're used to on the Apple devices. In my opinion, it's much, much clearer on the Apple devices. This has got like a, yeah, please.
Another thing to note for the voiceover users, Android's TalkBack or any of the text-to-speech services that it has, they seem to like to announce everything in lists. So if you're in like the settings, how if you're scrolling through settings, you just go through and it says, general accessibility. With TalkBack, it'll say list item 1 of 4, 2 of 4. Like it likes to put things into lists and then give them all numbers just so you understand like why it's doing that.
That was helpful. Thank you very much.
Hope it makes sense.
Awesome. All right. So as you could hear, it does work a little differently than VoiceOver does. You can use one finger, different tapping.
Screen off. Ringer silent. Device unlocked. 11:49 a.m. When talkback is on, it provides.
Now, even though I'm not on the home screen, it still tells me what time it is, which is kind of nice. I didn't have to find it. It just told me automatically where it was. So TalkBack, it works, it's a screen reader. So it works, very much like a screen reader. When you touch things, it just.
Talkback out of list. Navigate up button. When talkback is on, it provides settings 1 of 2. Talkback settings. Navigate text-to-speech settings in list. Double tap to activate.
Do you guys hear some of the feedback when I'm pressing it? It's making little noises.
Yes.
Verbosity. Use proximity. Text-to-speech.
What's happening is not only
tap to activate.
Not only am I getting verbal response, but when I touch the phone is giving me is vibrating as I touch it. So I'm getting feedback in 2 different ways, so that I know I'm interacting. Some people have that difficulty with the iPhone. So
did you turn that on or off, or did it come that way?
Proximity sensor does not control.
I turned it on.
Switch.
I turned it on because I wanted the full.
Activate.
I wanted the full experience, and I wanted to see, how that worked versus, the others. You can get it to speak passwords.
Passwords always spoken on.
You turned on the clicking, you mean?
Double tap to activate.
I turned on the clicking, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mary Abby, is there a setting in the iPhone for having it not speak passwords?
No, I don't think so. I need to check that one. I can't actually say,
Sorry.
but I don't think so. No worries. That's a good question. I don't think there is, but I will look.
I've never seen one, so that'd be good to know.
Yeah, that would be good to know. Thank you for asking that one. I'll check it out.
Yep. All right. I just kind of went a little all over the place. Let me back up just a little bit, and I want to tell you about just specifically the Google or the Android Accessibility Suite. When you install the Accessibility Suite, it gives you accessibility menu, something called Select to speak, which is really nice because what you can do is you can select something on your screen or point your camera at an image. If there's any text there, it'll be spoken,
Oh,
Screen off.
which is
You're
really
silent.
helpful. We talked a little bit about switch access, so that also comes with the Android Accessibility Suite. And then lastly, of course, TalkBack. So those are the 4 items that you get that's built into the Android Accessibility Suite. Most people, believe it or not, just use the TalkBack feature in this. That accessibility menu is what I showed you here.
Device on 1152A. Accessibility button out of list. Go to previous screen. Lock
So-
screen button, row 1, column 1.
And when you do 2 taps to this, that magic tap, you touch the screen with 2 fingers, that makes it be quiet. So the same gesture works for the Android as it does for the Apple device too.
Gloria, where
but I-
was
yes.
You said it was under accessibility?
TalkBack is something that you have to install.
Oh.
So you'd have to go to the Google Play Store
Oh, okay.
and install the Android Accessibility Suite.
Oh,
This is Mary Abby. It's kind of weird because some phones have it pre-installed and some
Yeah.
don't. If you have a Samsung device, my theory is that it comes with Samsung's version of an accessibility suite, so they don't think you need TalkBack. But
Right.
if you have another type of phone, you may have to install it, or it may already come on your device. If you go into accessibility, it should be there as well. Again, it's kind of hard to know depending on what phone you have.
Screen off.
It is,
Finger
and
silent.
that's exactly like what I was trying to bring up at the beginning. All the phones have their own what they call voice assistant, which is their screen reader built in, so that you can get to this place of installing the Android Accessibility Suite. But like Mary Abby said, though, they're not all the same. When I purchased this Samsung, it had all the Bixby stuff in it, which is all, they have Bixby vision enhancements, they have the Bixby voice assistant, so it had their Samsung's accessibility built in, but I wanted Google's, so I had to install Google's. And what was interesting is I had to do the same thing because you can use this is Amazon's tablet, and you can use the tablet, but again, you have to install the accessibility options, and then on these tablets they have very little memory in them, so you have to make sure that when you install them, you don't have a ton of books on it too. So you can use what's nice about the Amazon tablets is that they're very inexpensive, but remember you can't expand on them. So if you use them to listen to books, you have to kind of keep your library clean. In other words, you can't put a ton of books on it. And then you got to be conscious about what apps that you put on it, because once you get it full, that's it. It doesn't have any room to grow, so to speak. So that's good to know. The tablets, right now it's Amazon Prime Day, so the tablets are very inexpensive. I know that the 8s you can get for somewhere between around $70. Okay, but remember, what you're getting, you can run Zoom on the Kindle Fire tablets. You can set up Alexa devices on Kindle Fire tablets, but like I said, they just don't grow. And what I mean by that is you buy one with like 16 gigabytes, that's all you get. Once it's full, then it starts dragging, lagging, you lose performance, you can't update anymore. So you get what you pay for. I just wanted you guys to show you this. This is the Galaxy A tablet that we purchased for part of our training here, and then again to be able to support and assist you. We got this particular tablet because it has the capability of growing. We can put in what we call a micro card, SD micro card, so that this tablet can grow. This is a fully functioning Android tablet. I can connect Bluetooth keyboards to it. We can put Zoom on it, read books on it, and do most of the stuff that you would do on a normal tablet. On this one, it's a Samsung tablet, so again, it had all the Samsung stuff built into it. if I wanted the Google Accessibility Suite, I had to download it and install it, and then configure it.
Gloria, can you show us that?
The tablet.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's bigger. That's much easier to read.
Yes, it is. And therefore the settings are really sweet too. So I'm trying to get it as much in the screen here.
Yep.
All right. So this one is set to dark mode because I use it. But just to give us some ideas for the fonts, I've got it at full size font, just so this is as big. Let me just move it down here so you guys can tell.
Yep.
So here is the big letter A at the end. So I've got it as big as it will go. And I think the font style, I'm going to try another font. There we go. I think that font style is called Gothic Bold. It kind of makes things a little bit bigger.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm just going to go back. I'm just into the display settings. And I always do that. I hit the wrong one.
Mhm.
There we go. So I have advanced features. If you see, this one's a little different. This one called digital well-being and parental controls. I didn't have that in my phone. We always have device key. Here's the accessibility here. Okay, and they're very, very similar to the other ones. And if you notice, there's 4 functions being used, and it's probably all the same ones, the big fonts, the color in the background. I think I have magnifier on too. I can't think what the 4th one is. So, and if you look way down at the bottom here, it says installed services, TalkBack, and 3 others. So for this one, I actually had to go to the Google store and get it and download it. And, you know, I'd be happy to help anybody do that, whether it be over the phone or in person, if you need to do that. Tracy, I think you're coming in soon. When you come in, I'll have the tablet to show you so that you can, you know, see what it looks like compared to something else.
Correct.
The very first thing that I typically do with most tablets is I would change the background of the screen and just make it one solid color. It's so much easier to be able to find things.
Yes.
Yeah, but everybody's got their own shtick, as they say. All right.
Oh boy.
Couple of apps that I wanted to tell you about quickly is so
Device unlock. Back button. 12p. Navigate up button.
sorry about that.
Talkback. Talkback on. Alert turn off talkback. Turn off button. Talkback off.
There we go. All right. So a couple of things that I wanted to show you guys is there is one app that's comparable to Seeing AI. You guys familiar with that?
Nope.
And it's called Lookout. And so they have the app, and it's very, very similar to Seeing AI in that it uses your camera to be able to look at images and or text, and then be able to give you feedback. I don't know if it has like a caller ID in it and all that stuff. It asked me for all kinds of permissions, and I turned on all the permissions, and I just happened to point it. I have a picture in my office that had text on it, and it read it to me.
Nice.
So it works very similar to that. So it's called Lookout, and it's by Google. And then they also have another one called InVision AI, is another cool app that they have. And for those individuals that use Androids, please share with us any apps that you use. I'd love to be able to then share those, you know, with other people. And then I'm hoping next week we can have, you know, now that people have heard some of this, we'll have some really good discussion next week with regards to Android, even how they compare and contrast some of their differences, you know, the good versus bad, all that good fun stuff. Because I think I've used up all my time.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness.
That was very informative. I
Time
learned a
flies
lot
when you're having
myself.
fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone have questions?
Oy, oy, oy. I'm gonna
I know.
have to.
Sorry.
This is Carol. Great session, guys.
Thank you, Carol, for joining us.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Oh,
I'm
it's so
learning
good to
more
see
from
you.
you
Sarah.
both than I learned from our own AT teacher. So
Oh.
I live in an
you. Thank you
iPhone
so much.
world.
Yeah, yeah. I did too until I took this leap. And it was pretty interesting. It's funny because now I tend to go to the Android for certain things instead of the iPhone. So it's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, we've been very
Should
limited.
be
I'm
fun.
an O&M instructor, and so it's been challenging when they come in with
Yeah.
an Android to find a travel app
Sure.
that works with them. And then if we do find one, I don't know how to use it because I don't use an Android. So these are some good troubleshooting
Mm.
for the accessibility features.
Cool.
Yeah. Gloria, it's Molly. I had a question about, I'm going to say voice assistant, but I don't mean the screen reader. I mean like the Siri equivalent. So obviously, you know, you really kind of, you gain a lot in, you know, customizability, but you lose a lot in consistency. And so I guess as a result of that, my question would be like, if you pick up any Android phone, is any Android phone going to have the Google Assistant where you can say, okay, Google, you know, do this? Or is that something that is not guaranteed?
If they have the ability to remove it, so like if the user is like, I don't want this, they can get rid of it altogether. So yes, but as far as I know, you can get rid of it.
You can always so Google, here's the thing with Androids, it's Google. So what happens is when you get an Android phone, you sign in with a Gmail account. That's what it likes best. And then once you do that, you've got a Google account, and then they immediately take you to the settings to set up your Google. And it basically works the same as what would, you know, their little HomePod thing, whatever that Google has, I don't know what it's called. But your phone, your Android phone ends up working the same way. So it's a little more conversational than like Alexa would be, but it can still do a lot of things. A couple of things I like is I'll say, read me my text messages from Molly, and it'll just read me. Well, I know we can do that with the iPhone too, but it'll just, you know, so I'll tell it, say, Google, read me my text messages from Molly. Just read me my last email from Mary Abby.
So
open the
it's
settings
possible to, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So it's possible to use that Google Assistant on any Android phone. It just isn't necessarily like automatically enabled already. So you could conceivably, you know, pick up somebody's Android phone and it might not be set up yet. Is that correct?
Yes, because I was playing with someone else's phone the other day, and I was like trying to figure out how to get their assistant up, but they were using Bixby and not Google. So therefore, I mean, and you never know like which button. And like I said, every phone is different, or like Gloria said, every phone is different. So I was wondering, well, how do I activate it? Do I hold this button down? Do I hold that button down? And it's different for every phone.
Right. So basically the short answer is there really is no universal, like any iOS device, if you pick it up, you can hold down the home button and say Siri, and if Siri is not enabled, it will at the very least let you know Siri is not available, or, you know, do this to set up Siri. Basically, there is no universal thing that you could try.
There's so many variables there where, you know, they
right. Okay. Cool. I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Right.
The magic key.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
What I found doing the
thank
research and trying to get everything set up was, if I needed the thing to talk, I had to first turn on the voice assistant so that I could navigate through the device to get talkback, and then to set up the Google Assistant.
Right, and
Once I did that, then I shut off voice assistant and I could use talkback.
And I couldn't find a way, Gloria, tell me if I'm wrong, but I couldn't find a way when I was playing with it to say, oh, turn on voiceover, or like turn on talkback. It wouldn't do it for me. Like if I said, hey, Google, turn on talkback. I don't know if it was the way I phrased it. And I don't know if it's because it hadn't been set up yet. So, I mean, grain of salt. But just so you know, I don't know if it can do like open X app or open. It might be able to. I just haven't been able to like really figure that out yet.
We're still learning. We're still playing. We've only the tablet. We've only had. I don't even think we've had it a month yet. And the phone we've only had a month. So we're all still learning, and we're open to sharing. So that's why I just thought we'll share what we learned so far, and we'll keep sharing as we go along. And I was really hoping that next week, when we have our AT discovery session, we can share more, and hopefully we'll have questions about it, and keep learning. Some of those things I actually want to try, so maybe we'll have
This was
some
great.
lessons
Thank you
next
so
week.
much.
Yes, this was really interesting. Thanks.
So if I want to watch this again, so
Yep, I'll send it out to you, Tracy. No worries.
thank you, dear.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
This is
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you guys
really
for
for joining.
everything.
your expertise and your
Thank you.
time.
Oh,
Thank
thank
We
you. Thank you
appreciate
for
you
joining
coming
us.
for sure.
you.
All right. Be well, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank